Well, I'll tell you a couple of straight things. Things that I don't really understand. The first is when you've done the analysis of the effect of the future authoring program. It has had a differential impact on men, and it had a particularly differential impact on what I call excluded men. And so, what would be non-Western ethnic minority men or what? Majority men who aren't doing very well. So, for example, at Mohawk College, the future authoring program had a particularly robust effect on the Mohawk College students who were men who hadn't done very well in high school and who hadn't picked a major that had a career destination at its end. So, you can imagine those people, they have ambitious relationship with the idea of education, and they're not oriented specifically toward a goal. They're not very motivated. Now, why did it have a differential effect on men? That's a good question. Well, first of all, the women are doing better, so it might just be a matter of fact that it doesn't better for people who aren't doing as well. And at the moment, most of them are men. I think it might be part of it, but I don't believe that's all of it. I think that's a part of the reason that women aren't doing better. It's because they're agreeable. And so, if a system sets out the structure and says, here is a pathway to attainment, the woman who won't rebel against that, they'll go along with it. And that's working very well for them at the moment. The men, especially the men on the disagreeable end of distribution. And there are way more men on the disagreeable end of the distribution than there are women. That's what we said. We get from it. You look at overlapping normal distribution. So there is a female distribution of agreeableness, male distribution for agreeableness. Tremendous overlap. Okay, women are higher. All the really agreeable people are women. All the really disagreeable people are men. And maybe the real difference is occur at the extremists. It's very interesting side effect of overlapping distribution. People can be mostly the same, but they can still produce radical differences. Disagreeable men won't do everything they do not want to do. They just say, up yours. I'll go home and play a video game. Be with you. It's not listening to your stupid classes. And why should I work for you? I'll just go have fun. I'll do my own things. I do think they are motivated. And so then if you take the men who are like that you and say, okay, what do you want? You can have what you want, but you have to figure out what it is. And then they write down what they think. Oh, hey, well, they might be worth having, so maybe I'll put some effort into it. That's what it looks like to me. Now, that's weak evidence, and this is a weak argument, but I'm trying to stretch out my understanding to account for it. But I'll tell you something else that is really weird. I don't understand this either. So, more than 90% of the people who watch my videos on YouTube are men now. That's weird because about 80% of psychology students are women. So that it's not what you would expect, right? You would expect that true majority of them would be women. And you might say, well, it's because of political stance I've taken. And I thought, well, there's a possible, so I went and looked at the demographic data because I have that. Well, before I did my political videos, 85% of my viewers were men. So it's actually increased a bit. It's increased by 60%. And that would be trivial, but it was still overwhelmingly men, so that was interesting. I thought, what the hell? Where is that exactly? And then now I've been watching crowds when I've been taking to them. And the crowd that have to see me in prison, that happened at the University of Toronto Free Speech debate, and I actually noticed and commented on it before the debate took place, because I was taking apart intrinsic difference between men and women. And I looked around the room and I thought, hey, 80% of the people in the room are men. So I had all the women and women stand up. And then all the men stand up. I said, look, here is a natural experiment. For some reason, 80% of the people who showed up to this are men. Now, everybody thought I was cracked to do that. And it was a risk. And I thought, no, there is something going on here. And then what's interesting now is that every public appearance that I've made that's related to the topics that we're discussing is overwhelmingly men. It's like 85 to 90%. And so I thought, wow, that's weird. Like, what the hell is going on here exactly? And then the other things I've noticed is that I've been talking to a lot to crowds that I've been talking to, not about rights, but about responsibility. Because you cannot have bloodly conversation. What are you doing? You cannot have conversation about rights, the conversation about responsibility, because your rights are my responsibility. And that's what they are technically. So you just cannot have only half of that discussion, and we're only having half that discussion. And the question is, well, what the hell are you living? Are you living out if you only have that half of discussion? And the answer is, well, you're living out responsibility. And then the question is, well, what are you living out if you're living out responsibility? And the answer might be, well, maybe you're living out the meaning of life. That's what it looks like to me. It's like here you are suffering away. What makes it worthwhile, right? You know, you're completely out. You have no idea what's your. It's almost impossible to describe how bad an idea that is. Please check out my channel for more awesome content. Do not forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Your support means a lot. Responsibility, that what gives life meaning. It's like left alone. Then you can tolerate yourself, right? Because look at your useless, easily hurt, easily killed. And why should you have any self-respect? That's the story of the fall. Pick something up and carry it. Make it heavy enough so that you can think, yeah, well, useless as I am, at least, I could move that from there to there. Well, what's really cool about that is that when I talk to those crowds about this, the men's eyes light up. I've seen the phenomenon because I've been talking about the mythological material for a long time. And I can see what I'm watching crowds, people, their eyebrows lift. Their eyes light up because I put something together for them. And that's what mythological stories do. So I'm not talking about responsibility for that. That's what that stories do. So I see the story and people go click, click, click. And their eyes light up. But this responsibility things, that's the whole new order of this. Is that young men are so hungry for that. It's unbelievable. And one of the things I've been talking to some of the people who have been running for the conversation leadership in Canada, that I've been talking to them about difficulty they have communicating with people, because conversation, what the hell are going to sell young people? Because being conservative is something that happens when you're older. They call self-responsibility. No one's selling it. And there is a thing is, for men, there is nothing but responsibility. I was watching The Simpsons the other day. I watched the first Simpsons episode, so I deconstructed it. So it's really interesting. So what happens in the first Simpsons episode is that it's Christmas and the Homer and Marge are going to buy some Christmas present, but Homer doesn't get this Christmas bonus, and so it's absolutely he's crushed by that.